the ninth Tokyo International Conference on African Development, the TICAD. And of course, there were many important files discussed. Over the phone, we have Mr. Abdulatif Wahba. He's a political analyst. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So, first of all, could you tell us more about the important files that were discussed on the TICAD?
As you know, that we can say just now that there is a competition between the meager economy of the superpower in the world, like the United States, like China, like Latin America, and so on. There is a competition between them in order to boost their relations with the African continent and African countries. In recent years, for example, there is a convention, annual conventions between the Chinese and the African countries, and also between the Latin American countries, and also with the African countries. So it is important for not only for the African countries, but also for the superpowers and the super economy in the world to increase their cooperation with the African states. As you know, Africa is African continent is the center of the world, and at the same time the richest place all over the world with the natural resources and also manpowers and huge consumers all over the world. So they are trying to get some benefits from the African countries. At the same time, as you know, that the African countries, African Union, and the many African states is trying to get the know-how from Japan itself, especially as you know that Japan has an international agency for cooperation with the African, with the many countries, especially, for example, like JICA and so on. They can donate for the development of the African states, and they can contribute at the same time to modernize the main infrastructures of the African countries. This is the main goal of the cooperation between Japan and the African countries. At the same time, as you know that they are trying to create some chances and opportunities in Africa to modernize education and to increase the standard of the social life. This is, of course, a help at the same time to face or to overcome the unemployment rate in many African countries. So it is a mutual.
Sir, talking about the reforms, the procedures or measures to be adopted, from your own point of view, if we are talking about this reform, what kind of reform can the UN Security Council take or need actually to bring more justice to African nations in the upcoming period?
Yeah, of course. This is what became a necessity for the African countries, especially after the international conflict in many different places, especially, for example, in Gaza, in the Israeli attack on Gazan people, and at the same time some political disturbances that happened in African countries, and at the same time, as you know, that Egypt is one of the main country in Africa that asked the international community to deal with Africa as a power, and they can help an important role in international stability at the same time, because the stability of the African countries is a vast and is important for the other foreign countries, especially in Europe, in East Asia, in Japan, and so on. You remember exactly that Egypt called the international society or the international community to deal with the African countries as they have a right to participate and to be a decisive in many events all over the world, especially that concerned the international or the political conflicts in the African countries. They asked to help the African countries not by the interference of the foreign countries in the internal affairs of the African countries, but can be solved by the African people and the African bodies like African Union and so on.
So what is the role of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in this respect? As
you know that the African governments in the African continent, they have just now a unified opinion to keep peace in all the African continent, and not to let to the political disturbances to penetrate across the African nations. As you know, if anything happens in a country, for example, the neighboring countries at the same time are completely influenced by the conflict. So the repercussions of such disturbances is difficult for the others to endure it.
So what were the recommendations of the final communique in light of reaffirming the right of all African Union member states to participate in the TCAD meetings?
Yeah, of course, as you know that Egypt, for example, during many international events and during when it was a chairman of the African Union, Egypt adopted a policy to urge the international community and the European countries to help the African nations, especially in many different sectors, in energy, in main infrastructures, in education, in health, and so on. So it is a chance for the African countries to get their portions from the foreign aids and the foreign donations that Japan directed to some places all over, or to some countries all over the world. You remember exactly at the same time the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi declared many times that the African countries mustn't pay the fees of the colonization period from the European and the foreign countries 2 times. They paid it before, but now the superpower and the ex-colonized countries has to compensate the African countries about the period they were colonized by the European countries.
Right, Mr. Abdulatif Wahba, our political analyst, thank you very much for joining us. And moving on to a quick break, then we'll be back.